In the golden years of my life, the last thing that I would ever had expected was to see a werewolf. But that's exactly what happened to me and my wife Margaret. And although our encounter was brief, it was absolutely terrifying. Understand, I'm 73 years old, and the situation my wife and I found ourselves in, there was no way that we could run. We couldn't physically run from this thing. Now, these events happened when we went to go visit family members in Faceville, Georgia. A beautiful piece of property. They have their own pond stocked with fish, beautiful gardens. You would think that it's one of those completely off-the-grid survival type homes. But it's not. It's got all the amenities and comforts of any big house in the city. Now let me say this. You don't get to be 70 years old by not taking care of your body. So no matter where my wife and I found ourselves, the first thing we would do was get up in the morning and pray. And then the second thing we would do was put on our tennis shoes and go for a walk. It didn't matter where we were or what was going on. We had to get 10,000 steps in per day. It's an agreement that she and I have, and it doesn't change no matter what. So when we arrive to Georgia, we hang out with family, go to bed early, get up, and head outside for a walk. The way their property was set up, when you walk out of the back door, you head down the steps, and you got about 50 yards till you get to their pond. Our plan was to do laps around the pond until we got to 10,000 steps. Now on the far side of that pond is a tree line with some woods. Not really thick woods, but just woods. It's 6:30 in the morning. Margaret and I put on our shoes, head out that back door, and get to walking laps. We make our first lap around that pond, and everything is uneventful. We're laughing and joking about things that happen. We make our second lap around the pond, and when we get to the far side by the woods, it's unusually quiet and creepy. Margaret comments on it, but I'm like, come on, darling, let's go. We only got one more lap left. When we make our third lap around that pond, you can hear something moving over there in the trees. Listen, I'm thinking it's a deer or a squirrel. You could have never ever told me that it was a freaking werewolf. We both briefly stop, and my wife quickly comments about how weird the feeling is on this side of the pond and how the feeling in this area changed from the first lap that we took around the pond. She's saying, darling, I feel like something's in these woods watching me. So now she's pulling me by the hand, encouraging me to move on, but I'm standing there staring into the trees because she's right. It feels like something's watching us, but I can't see anything. And again, it's not like these trees by this pond are all lumped together. There's enough space between trees for you to kind of clearly see through back up in there. You know how it is when you make up your mind something creepy and weird is going on, but you're going to let it go and try and ignore it. That's exactly the point I had gotten to mentally. I said, okay, something's weird going on. We only got a half a lap left. Let's just get back to the house and don't worry about it. So now we're walking again, and this time I hear something running in our direction. When I turn to my right and look in those woods, it is an upright walking wolf. Listen, this thing is jet black. 7.5 feet tall, standing on two legs. It's not exactly slender, but it's not super muscular. It stops right there at the edge of the tree line, no more than 40 yards away from us. Now initially when I laid eyes on this thing, it was absolutely terrifying. I'm talking about gut-wrenching fear. I'm standing there looking at it, and it's looking straight past me at her, and I come to realize that this thing might just attack her. Listen, again, like I told you, I'm 70 years old. There's no running from it. And looking at this creature, there's little chance that I'm going to even be able to fight it off. But the one thing I knew was from the day I married Margaret, I was willing to lay down my life for her. And if it was going to get her, it was going to have to go through me. And the only weapon I had was a little pocket knife that I always kept on me. So now I'm pulling that pocket knife out, and I have it in my hand, and I step directly in front of my wife, and me and this thing have a stare down. And when I tell you that these animals know how to literally project fear, it was almost as if it was trying to project into my mind, be afraid of me, I'm going to attack you. I'm standing there saying out loud, I don't care what you do to me, but you're not finna do anything to my wife. Listen, I couldn't remember how long I stood there staring at this thing. Later on, Margaret said it felt like a minute to a minute and a half, but I stand there with my eyes locked, looking into its eyes. And I'll never forget those bright yellow eyes, huge black pupils. And it was almost as if it was testing my willpower. And once it realized that I wasn't going to let it do what it wanted to do, it dropped down on all fours, turned around, and ran. Again, like I told you, I'm too old to be trying to run from anyone or anything. But my wife and I sure enough sped walk as fast as we could around that pond and up and into that house. When we walk into the kitchen, everybody's laughing and smiling, sitting around the table, asking us what we want for breakfast. And the two of us are still in shock at what we saw. I'm talking about a fear that's so strong that you have to go into the bedroom and lay down and take a nap. Finally, when the two of us woke up, we started to tell everyone what happened. Now, here's the craziest thing. I'm expecting everybody to look at us like we have lost our damn minds. But nope, not one person in the room acted as if they didn't know what we were talking about. In fact, they were just apologetic, saying that we're sorry you experienced that, but you guys are going to be all right. Sometimes they come around just to see who's here, and then they go on about their business. They tend not to bother anyone. They spent the entire day apologizing about it and trying to explain it to me and justify and say they've seen them before, blah, blah, blah. But man, I know what I felt. And I felt as if I would have backed down, it would have killed my wife. And I wasn't having that.